love, share, and serve together, we welcome you into this fellowship. We begin our service with a reminder that our electronic campfire does not always work perfectly. So if we have an audio-visual problem, please hang in there with us until we get it fixed. We start with a song, an invitation to gather together even though we are scattered in many different places. Please stay muted, but join in at home as loudly as you can as we sing Enter, Rejoice, and Zoom in. If you're a visitor with us for the first time, we offer a special welcome. Please open the chat box at the bottom of your screen if you're on Zoom to let us know your name, where you're located, and how you found us. Thank you. One of the few rituals in UUism is the lighting of the chalice at the beginning of each service. The flaming chalice sheds a light that represents our community, our hopes for a better future, and the spirit of conviction regarding our principles. As we light this chalice, please join me in reciting the affirmation of our fellowship. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. If you have a chalice with you at home, take a moment now to light it. Today's opening words come from Leslie Takahashi, minister of Mount Diablo UU Congregation in Walnut Creek, California. To worship is considered that which has worth. Today, we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community, the opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others, the chance to stand up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice, the freedom to choose one's own path to truth and to learn from the travelogues of others, the space to expand one's spirit and to reconnect after busy or even humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of our lives. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love. And the aspiration to consider all life as precious, as for if all is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous? So this morning, let's welcome all these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies. The blood of martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion. The sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity. The tears of those who struggled to build better lives for those in this life. The questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understanding as a fresh lens. The laughter of those giddy with the embrace of community. The dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and then stretched a little more. The infinite acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole done by those who knew themselves in sympathy with our purposes. So today we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward that which has been paid forward for us. And now, with all this in mind, let us enter into worship with gladness in our heart. And the next item on our service this morning is the Book of Life. This is where we will take some time to share our sorrows and joys, our failures and successes. The electronic version of the Book of Life is the chat box if you're on Zoom. Enter there the thoughts you want to share with others. In 2 minutes, the sound of the singing bowl will call us back together. One purpose of our congregating here is to encourage all to grow more generous in spirit and action. So we remind you that bills continue to come in, and we need your generous pledges and donations to keep hard times away from our door. If you're not on auto pay at your bank, please continue to mail in your checks or use the online app Venmo. At this point, we will have a hymn for all that is our life, one of my favorites.
I can't bring it up.
Can't get it. Well, apparently the hymn has gone into cyberspace. So we'll continue with this morning's service. In the absence of our regular minister, Dan Lambert, we are honored once more to have as our guest minister, the Reverend Schmitz. She is the former senior minister of the First UU Church of Orlando, Florida, and is presently board chair of the Interfaith Council of Florida. She's coming to us today from Atlanta, where she's working with her grandchildren through the COVID pandemic. Our opening song says, "Don't be afraid of some change." Rev Kathy is a great example of what that means. She started life as a software engineer, but eventually earned a master's degree of divinity and transitioned to a new career as a minister. Kathy's talk this morning will be in 3 parts, and I will use the singing bowl to announce the beginnings of parts 2 and 3. We'll have a little break in between each one for you to meditate for a minute. So welcome, Reverend Kathy Schmitz.
I fell off.
Be patient. She's coming here.
Okay, I'm coming all the way from Georgia, and for some reason, things just went wonky there for a minute, but I think I'm here now. Can I get a couple thumbs up? Okay, good, good. Glad you can hear me. As Ken said, my reflections this morning will be in 3 parts with a little time for reflection in between. So I start with these words. May you be free from danger and unafraid. May you be happy in your mind, happy in your body, happy in your spirit. May you live with grace and ease. This is a version of the words used in the Buddhist practice of loving kindness or metta meditation. Metta is the practice through which one expands their circle of love and compassion outward in ever widening radius. Some of you will remember that Jackie led us in a version of this after worship last week, and Jackie will be offering another meditation after the service today. In this context, loving kindness means wishing for the happiness and well-being of all. I use this practice when I'm worried about someone or angry with someone. I use it when I'm going into a difficult meeting. I use it when I'm feeling ungrounded. I have used it as a parent, as a partner, a minister, a friend, a colleague, a citizen, and more. Now that you know what it is, let me share it once more. May you be free from danger and unafraid. May you be happy in your mind, happy in your body, happy in your spirit. May you live with grace and ease. In Buddhism, loving kindness is one of the 4 Brahma Vihara, or divine dwelling places. Together, they are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. We tend to talk about one of the other Brahma Vihara, compassion, quite a bit. It has been noted that some version of compassion teaching is found in most of the world's religion, often by way of the Golden Rule. This morning, I'd like to take a few minutes to think about the 4th Brahma Vihara, equanimity. First, a little review. The first 3 teachings encourage us in turn to offer loving kindness to all beings, that is, to wish for the happiness of all, to offer compassion to all beings, that is, to open ourselves to the suffering of others, to offer sympathetic joy to all beings is to allow ourselves to feel joy at the joy of others. The teachings tell us that we can do all these things, and if we can, we will be living in 3 of the 4 divine dwelling places. And most of us know from experience that while these teachings sound really promising, they are, in practice, really challenging. It's not always easy to offer loving kindness to all, there may be those whose happiness we find it a bit of a stretch to wish for. It is not always easy to be compassionate. We may become overwhelmed or shut ourselves off from the suffering of others. And it's not always easy to be joyful for others. Jealousy and other barriers stand in the way. It's challenging. And yet, many heed the teachings and try nonetheless. The fourth teaching, equanimity, is in some ways supported by the other teachings. In other ways, it's the glue that holds all the others together. Equanimity. There are some things that no matter our good intentions, no matter how valiant our efforts, we cannot change. And yet, too often we make ourselves frustrated and exhausted by trying. American Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg gives a familiar example. She writes, many, if not most of us, have had the experience of watching someone we care about behaving in a way that is not in their best interests, which may in fact be self-destructive. We can offer them love, we can offer them compassion. However, only a decision on their part to stop the self-destructive behavior will put an end to their suffering. We can continue to love them and offer them compassion, but we must do so with equanimity, knowing that in the end, they are responsible for their own behavior. Salzberg points out that in modern psychology terms, we would call this release from codependence. No matter our intentions, there are some things that are beyond our control. For example, suppose there was a minister, and before worship one morning, she did her loving kindness meditation. It reflected quite deeply her hopes and dreams for the congregation that she would be speaking with. She recited, "May the congregation I serve and all of its members and friends be free from danger and unafraid. May they be happy in their minds, happy in their bodies, happy in their spirits. May they live with grace and ease." Suppose she was very clear about her wish for the happiness of all. And then just suppose that she arrived at worship and that some of the people were in danger and others were afraid, that some were not happy in their bodies, minds, and spirits. Some were clearly not living with grace, and the lack of ease in some was immediately obvious. Imagine her distress when she discovered that some of these people had the nerve to be unhappy when she had gone through all the effort to wish them happiness. Just imagine. Perhaps you have people in your life with such nerve. I sometimes find that I myself am the person in my life who won't get with the program. I sometimes find that as much as I wish for happiness, today is not going to be that day. And still I hold out the wish for happiness. And still you may too. And still that minister, she arrives at worship every week, sending forth her wish for the happiness of others. And maybe you do too. It does not matter that not everyone gets with the program. It does not matter. We can love them anyway. Equanimity is the ability to accept things as they are, in spite of our wish that they might be otherwise. Equanimity is the ability to accept things as they are. A Buddhist meditation on equanimity says, all beings are the owners of their own karma. Their happiness and unhappiness depend on their actions, not on my wishes for them. Cultivating equanimity makes it easier for us to stay open to other people. We can offer them love and compassion and joy without becoming frustrated or increasing our own suffering when things do not turn out as we might have wished. And so I offer you a moment of silence to reflect on how equanimity manifests itself in your life. Now that we are all calm, or at least aware of our lack of calm, I'd like to explore our third Unitarian Universalist Association principle, which affirms and promotes acceptance and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Let's look at that first part, acceptance. It seems like such a nice word. Acceptance, encouraging us to do something broader than mere tolerance, perhaps. Acceptance, not quite as bold as affirmation or appreciation. You know, I often think of our principles not as rules, but as aspirations. Acceptance, it can be challenging, but it is a worthy aspiration. It's important to me that when people come into our congregations, any of our congregations, they are accepted. You are good enough, just as you are. You do not have to be perfect. You are loved even in your imperfection. This is the gift that we hold out to one another. You are good enough, just as you are. You do not have to be perfect. You are loved, even in your imperfection. This is the gift we hold out to one another. We affirm and promote acceptance and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. This is the gift we hold out to one another. Yet, if I had the opportunity to rewrite our principles, I would leave off that last phrase, in our congregations. That aspiration to offer acceptance to others, I don't think it's something we tuck away at the end of the service. Not something we reserve only for this community, however beloved it is. We practice here, but we do not end here. We take it out into the world, all that we have learned. As you go through the week ahead, I invite you to notice, to be aware of acts of acceptance. Notice the act and notice also, when were you the one doing the accepting? Did it come naturally, or was it an intentional act on your part? Notice too, when others were accepting of you or others. And also notice when you were the recipient of acceptance. Do you find it easy to be accepted? Do you accept being accepted? Or do the voices in your head or your heart push back and say, no, it can't be so? What would it take for you to know that you are acceptable? I invite you once again to a moment of reflection on acceptance and how it plays out in your life.
heaven.
Picture this. A toddler is walking boldly away from their parents, and suddenly they turn and run back. The parent often has mixed feelings: pride in the growth of the child, a little fear, loss of their baby, excitement about what comes next. We know that the child must walk to the edge of all they know and then be brave enough to go a little further. It's the only way they can grow and learn. It is our role as adults to be supportive of them as they expand the boundaries of their world, keeping them safe but not too safe, urging them on but not too fast. Years ago, I attended a workshop that has always stayed with me. It was titled Dancing on the Edge of Meaning. Isn't that a great title? Dancing on the Edge of Meaning. Its subtitle was Religious Leadership for a Multiracial, Multicultural, Theologically Diverse World. I hoped that it would help me, support me in my quest to be ever more inclusive, welcoming, and loving. It did help me with that. But more importantly, it made the case convincingly that offering such support for growth is one of the key roles of our religious communities. How do we, all of us in all of our congregations, help each person to be ever more inclusive, welcoming, and loving? It's not just toddlers who walk away from safety and discover the edge of all they know. It goes on throughout our lives. If we're lucky, over and over again, we come to the edge of meaning. We stare out into the unknown. Will we run back to the familiar? Will we be destroyed or fall into the abyss? Or will we dance on the edge of meaning, finding joy in incorporating new truths and greater understanding into our lives? Sometimes we find ourselves on the edge of meaning because of a spirit of adventure. We seek new understanding. That's what I was doing when I signed up for that workshop. We can do it when we read a new book, see a play, talk to a stranger, travel to someplace new. Sometimes, though, we don't seek the edge ourselves. Sometimes life places us there through loss or those times we refer to as yet another growth experience. We find ourselves on the edge, facing something new and unknown. However we arrive there, this is a time full of possibility and potential. This is true for individuals and sometimes for groups. We may find ourselves filled with fear and misgiving as we approach the unknown, and yet we may find that there are unexpected blessings to be discovered. The second part of the third Unitarian Universalist Association principle addresses this. We encourage spiritual growth. We urge you on to discover what is at the edge of all you know. We want to keep you safe, but not too safe, not so safe that you aren't challenged, not so safe that you can't change and grow. This is the apparent paradox. I personally love paradoxes. Earlier, I told you that you are acceptable, just as you are, just as you are. Now I'm saying that we encourage you to grow, and we do. Both things are true. You are good enough. You always are. You always will be. And yet, always there is more. Why? Why does this matter? For me, spirituality is about being connected to something beyond yourself or your own concerns. It might be the divine or human community or the natural world or the universe. If we take this idea of connection as a working definition, then to grow spiritually would be to grow in our ability to connect to something beyond ourselves, to be better connected, to find more ways of fitting in the world, more ways of relating to those around us, more ways of being a neighbor in the Christian call to love our neighbors as ourselves. Many of those who have been considered great spiritual or deeply spiritual teachers might have been said to be well connected to what is important in life. They might have been said to have a deep and expanded answer to the question, who is my neighbor? And a key element of liberal religions, such as Unitarian Universalism, is a commitment to growth. Because if we think we know it all, then we close our minds because we think we have nothing left to learn. But really, increasing knowledge should have exactly the opposite effect. The more we know, the more we should be able to see how much we don't know. The idea is demonstrated with a balloon. And I'll just say it first that I really don't like blowing up balloons. So the balloon represents everything we know. Whoops. Let me say that again. The air inside the balloon represents everything we know, and the air outside is everything we don't know. In that case, the balloon itself, that is the latex, represents the boundary between what we know and what we don't know. What we don't know is so much bigger than what we know, providing us with plenty to continue to wonder about. But notice that as the amount of knowledge increases, so does the boundary with what we don't know. The more we know, the more we are aware of what we don't know. So as knowledge increases, so does mystery. We are focused. Some of us handle this differently. Some of us are focused on what is inside the balloon. We focus on what we know. Some of us focus on what is outside as we perceive it as the boundary. These are natural differences. But as knowledge increases, so does mystery. So does our chance for learning. So does our chance for wonder. The problem arises when we lack comfort with the unknown, the opportunity for learning and that mystery and the wonder. If we are unable to tolerate not knowing, then we will, by necessity, limit our ability to gain knowledge. If we were to confine our balloon, say by putting it in a box so that it can't expand, then we limit our exposure to the unknown. Then we will also, by necessity, limit the amount of air we can add to it. We will limit our ability to learn. Most advances in human understanding have come about because of people's willingness to look at what they did not know and to wonder. The more we put in, the more we know how to connect, the more we are aware that there is more to connect to. Can you stay put? Well, yes and no. Some of us are more adventurous by nature and some of us more cautious. Most of us go through times of expansion and times of rest. We will love you, whatever you decide. But just remember, life may have other plans for you. When you are on that edge, the community can remind you that you are good enough just the way you are. You do not have to be perfect. You can try something new, and if it doesn't work, you can try again. Life on the edge of meaning is often messy. The toddling away from parents often trips and falls. May we know that it is okay to trip and fall, okay to get up and dust ourselves off, okay to run back to what is familiar for a hug, and then, when we are ready, to venture out to the edge once more. I invite you to one more moment of reflection as you reflect on where you find yourself on the edge of meaning.
Thank you, Rev Kathy, for these inspiring thoughts that will keep us thinking of both self-acceptance and growth. Much appreciated, and we will look forward to hearing from you again next week. And as I would say on Monty Python years ago, and now for something different. Life of the community. I'm going to ask our Zoom director, Laura Anderson, to step up here and give us a few items about the life of the community.
Good morning. This morning, I want to speak to you as a member of the Immigration Justice Committee and remind you that the quilt display, the 45,000 immigrant quilt, is still on display. Today is the last day. It is at the Visual Arts Center in Punta Gorda. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, it's beautiful, it's artistic, and it's moving as well. We hope people will go away with a better understanding and more compassion for immigrants. And the Immigration Justice Committee also is selling these signs. Oh, Ken says to me, you're reading it backwards. But anyway, it is an American flag of sorts, and we're selling these yard signs for $10. So if you would like one, you should contact me, Laura Anderson. My email, my phone number are in the directory, and I will sell you one. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
We're versatile people, so reading a sign backwards is no big deal, huh? Our closing words today come from the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom, the former Worship and Music Resources Director for the Unitarian Universalist Association. And they are in keeping with today's theme. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who he or she was, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown in ourselves and in each other, in the other, whoever that might be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from this meeting, not who you were, but who you could be. And so may we all. Now it is time to extinguish the chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. Let these ideals shine in our lives and in our warmer hearts until we are together again. Reverend Schmitz will do the benediction, and after that, if we can find it, we will finish with our parting hymn, Go Now in Peace.
As we go our separate ways, may you find and receive acceptance and be courageous on the edge of meaning. And may you remember these words. May you be free from danger and unafraid. May you be happy in your mind, your body, and your spirit, and you live with grace and ease. Be well.
We're working on it.
While you work on it, let me just say a thank you to Ken and to all the people who work behind the scenes to make your services work every week. It really appears to be a labor of love, and there's much to it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is quite a crew. Mhm.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Everywhere you may go.
And to quote Reverend Dan, this week go forth and be a blessing to yourself and everyone you meet. May it be so.